Setting up the project using markers. So the first thing I suggest that you do is make sure that you have got beats selected, not time. The next thing is you have to make sure that the metronome mark is the same as whatever program you're downloading from. So both Sibelius and Jam Studio, and I think possibly even Hook Theory, all default to 100, so that's probably a good starting point. You can make changes later, but if you've chosen a different tempo in whatever your other program is, you just have to make sure that they're all the same, otherwise things won't match up. Okay, so before you even begin, you've got to ask yourself, did I make the right choices when I opened this project? For example, if it's a song, you might not want a video track. And if you're using audio loops from other places, you might not want this MIDI track. Even if you do, you can always add it in later. But it just takes up screen real estate, so it's a bit of a waste of time. The next thing you want to do is have a clear idea of where the sections of your song are. So for today's demo, I'm just going to do a fairly generic popular song form. So at the start, I'm going to edit this to actually say intro. I'm going to scroll in a little bit so I can see all of the numbers of the bars. And after 4 bars, which is bar 5, I'm going to double click up here and make a new marker. And I'm going to call it V1. It doesn't have to be the full word. And typically a verse is 4 or 8 bars long. So at 13 mark, I'm going to put chorus 1, ch1. If you want to, you can change the color of the markers, which I sometimes find useful so you can tell which marker you're up to. And choruses would also usually be about 8 bars long. So my next one's going to be at 21, and this will be my verse 2. And the verse 2 will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there's my second chorus. And I was making my chorus markers yellow just to keep myself organized. And my second chorus is going to be 8 bars long. It could be an outro, it could be a bridge, could be final chorus, whatever, but I'm going to just call it outro. And I'm going to give it a third color because I'm going to scroll down in a little bit now, and you can see now my structure. Intro's 4 bars, verse 1's 8 bars, chorus is 8 bars, verse 2's 8 bars, chorus 2 is 8 bars, and my outro is going to be 4. So I might put one in there that just says sort of end. And to be truthful, it might be 5 bars because it might be 4 bars and a final crash or something. Or it could be 8 or 9, 8 bars and a final crash bar. Or if it was a fade ending, it might be 8 bars with a fade. But for me, I'm going to do a standard 4-bar outro with a sort of a chord and a crash on the last bar. This is what I recommend doing when you first begin. So you've got a clear idea of where the structure of the song is, and also make sure you've got snap to grid on. So when you're inserting loops, they snap to the bar lines, and you can also make sure you're putting them in the right section. The next suggestion I would make is that you should put all of the items that are the same instrument on either a single audio track, so like all the piano would be there, and then the chorus piano would be there, and then the verse 2 piano would be there, and then and so on. So I might call this actual track piano, yeah, and I might call this actual track bass, and I might call this actual track drums, and when I'm finished, I might call this actual track voice. And then you can move these around by dragging, and you can also color code them, which I usually do to try and make my project a bit easier to sort of understand, just so you can sort of see what you're doing. So that would be my suggestion for a sort of beginner project which doesn't have a vast number of things. If you find that you need many sort of different tracks of piano, then what you can do is create a submix track. You can do a right-click, insert submix track, and I could make this piano submix, and then I could drag, and I could make it yellow, and I could drag all my piano ones sort of underneath it, and then I can collapse it, a bit like OneNote pages, how you can have one sort of main one and lots of different piano ones sort of underneath it. That might be unnecessarily complicated. You could just simply have a single piano one, and as I say, place all of the piano loops on the same layer so that it makes sense. Now, I'll admit that sometimes when you import a sound, the track renames itself, so that's why I find the colours useful, although blue was probably a bad choice because it's used for other things. I might choose red. So that's the minimum plan. So yes, snap to grid, beats, markers with clear labels, put the key that you're in, which in my case today is D, put the tempo in, whatever your original tempo is from the program you're downloading from. Okay, that's my video for today.